We've got some good news with Celsius, some good news with Voyager. We've got actually some good news with the SEC, and also some alternatives and a little update after 24 hours of Ledger and their crazy ambition to do a recovery service. So right now, before we begin, you may notice that my voice is a little bit different. I'm feeling a little bit under the weather, but I have two options. I can lay around in bed and do nothing, or I can get up and do something. And that is why we are here today, just to give everybody a little bit of brevity about what's going on. So let's just jump into it, shall we? So the first things first, I must tell you, Celsius and Voyager weighs on me. And it weighs on me for a variety of reasons. First of all, because I talked about it quite a bit. Voyager, I would still be talking about right now if it wasn't for their ridiculous ambition to loan out $630 million uncollateralized loan to Three Arrows Capital. And Celsius, for Pete's sakes, I think was just somewhat half of a Ponzi scheme. However, there are good news. And the good news is that there may be a little light at the end of the tunnel. This just happened, a little bit of information just broke. Celsius bankruptcy auction may be near an end, with Fahrenheit in the lead. Here's what we got. So this isn't just from, I know a guy who knows a guy. A lawyer for Celsius Network on Wednesday said the crypto lender hopes to conclude an auction for its assets within days. And the current lead bidder is Fahrenheit LLC. Now, this is Michael Arrington's company, who is the co-founder of TechCrunch, and they came in and said that they were going to win this battle. And it looks like they may be. Celsius attorney Ross Quastanet nailed it, told U.S. bankruptcy judge Martin Glenn the auction has taken longer than expected, but has been highly competitive. I don't care about that. What I do care about is this next sentence. Current bids are hundreds of millions of dollars higher than the initial bid by Nova Wolf LLC. I never liked Nova Wolf LLC. I never liked the fact that they were talking about retail clawbacks. I thought it was a mistake and would bring everything down. So there may be light at the end of the tunnel, and that, my friends, that was a little bit of hope. So on top of that, Voyager. Voyager looks like they're wrapping up everything. Voyager had a tumultuous relationship with bidders. First, it was FTX, that failed. Then came Binance US. And of course, the SEC stepped in and said, hey, you can't do that because VGX is a security. Gave them 3 months. Then Binance US said, you know what? We don't like the atmosphere. We're going to bail out. So because of that, they said, let's just liquidate. And here we are. So bankrupt crypto broker cleared to repay $1.3 billion to creditors. Here's how much you're going to get. Voyager said the initial payments were made either in crypto, through the Voyager app, or in cash after a waiting period of 30 days. When does it start? Great question. This is going to start as early as June 1st. So this is what was said. At today's hearing, the court approved the liquidation procedures. We are working with Voyager to go effective under the plan as soon as possible, as early as this Friday, June 1st, latest date for finalizing the initial distribution of funds. The estate of Voyager is in possession of $1.3 billion, which equates to almost 76% of the value of customers' claims against Voyager estate, which is great. You would think, well, great, I'm going to get 76% back of what I have stuck on there. I have stuff stuck on there too. However, due to certain holdbacks, customers should only anticipate an initial payment. I want to make that clear. Initial payment of 35%. All right, we got a third. Any further distribution depends on the result of future litigation between FTX Alameda, also recovered by the Voyager estate as a creditor in the Three Arrows Capital liquidation for their boneheaded mistake of giving an uncollateralized loan to Three Arrows Capital. So I got to tell you, two good pieces of news and something I didn't expect this year to happen. So let me know what you think about that in the comments section. Now let's jump over to our friends at the SEC, as they believe that Filecoin is a security. And the reason was because Grayscale wants to put forth a Filecoin fund. Excuse me. The SEC barges in and said, no, we think that's a security like everything else. And that's going to put a little bit of dampener on that. On top of that, the SEC also believes that Algo and Mana is also a security. And because of that, iTrust Capital, which I personally use for a Roth IRA, is telling everybody, sorry, because of your favorite, everybody's favorite Gary Gensler, because he's protecting us so hard you can't keep algo and mana in your Roth IRA or any of your IRAs with iTrust Capital because our partners are not going to be able to keep the liquidity. So again, this is all because of a guy named Gary Gensler at the SEC who believes everything is a security. And he may or may not be right. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not here to debate that. But if you have, I had algo in my Roth IRA and I will have to liquidate it before May 24th, meaning I can sell it within my Roth IRA account. The good news is that there's no capital gains tax when you sell and move things around in your IRA, sell or buy within your Roth IRA account, which is pretty cool. So there's that. And that's pretty negative, huh? However, everything will lead to the roads of this. Ripple case. The SEC and their Hinman docs, could become public by June 6th. And what these are, this is what the XRP Army, this is what Brad Garlinghouse, this is what the lawyers for Ripple have been begging for so long. The Hinman docs, which is Hinman, who was the former SEC chair, had talked about how Ethereum was not a security. He made this very public. And they wanted these documents to be released. And it was a very long time. They said, no, you can't do that. Now the judge says you can't seal them. And we're going to make these available for everybody to see. So if he's going to say that Ethereum is not a security, maybe that would open up to XRP. Maybe it'd open up to Algorand. Maybe it'll open up to Mana and everything else we just talked about, because I'm not for sure that everything is a security. So that's good news, I think. And it's a win for us. And we'll take it right now after all the things that are happening on. And lastly, let's talk about Ledger. And yes, if you're just joining us, my voice does sound different. It's because I'm now AI. No, I'm just kidding. I am a little bit sick and under the weather. Like I said, get to sit around or actually get everybody up to speed with what's going on. So Ledger, they just put out this recovery option. And I was laying in bed yesterday watching all the war unfold on Twitter. Boy, it was entertaining, let me tell you. I got to tell you, Ledger did a great job with marketing for Tracer. They're like the number one MVP of marketing for everybody else. I cannot believe how bad it is that they would do this, but maybe we're wrong. Here's what's happening. So, excuse me, there's a recovery option for Ledger. And what they're going to allow you to do, your Ledger, which I have mine right here as a matter of fact, is to back things up. And they're going to split it into 3 pieces, and they're going to store it on different servers or different companies. And you're going to be able to reapply those mnemonic phrases so that you can reinstall if your cold storage device is ever lost. And when we heard about that, everybody, and I mean everybody, was up in arms. And this is how it works. This is how you set it up. Unfortunately, you have to essentially do KYC and AML. You have to put in your ID. You have to record yourself. You have to put in all your information in so that this can actually happen. And people were not too happy because we're supposed to be anonymous. We're supposed to be trustless. And we're supposed to be able to rely on ourselves. So why did they do this? Well, we'll get into that in a second. But there was 2 things that I thought was very interesting. And first thing is this, is that the launch restrictions, this is for your Ledger Nano S plus Ledger X and Ledger Stacks. Ledger Recovery isn't compatible with Ledger Nano S, not the Nano S Plus, just the old school Nano S. So if you got one of those, it might be worth even more money now, just saying. And then managing Ledger Recovery subscription. This was interesting, I found. First of all, this is going to cost you $10 a month. And if you don't update your payment info and pay the subscription within 7 days, you won't be able to restore your private keys. Man, I got to tell you, if you're looking for a different revenue stream, I don't think this was a good choice. If you don't regularize your payment within 3 months, your subscription will be suspended. After your subscription is suspended, you have 9 months to contact Ledger Recovery Support and reactivate your subscription. You'll need to also pay €50 along with the outstanding balance. So that takes care of that. And I got to tell you, when this came out, I was like, well, I can kind of see their point. Maybe they got people who are just newbies who don't want to self-custody. And this is Charles Guillemets. He is the CTO of Ledger. I linked this in the description. You can watch it yourself. I'm not going to play it. But he pretty much just says like this. He goes, look, you don't have to opt in for this. You don't have to. If you want to opt in for this, it's $10. You got to pay us $10, and then we're going to store your private keys for you, and you'll be able to back them up and get them. So I was like, well, that's not a bad deal. However, then as we go forward, people say, but you don't understand. It's not just that they're offering this. It's the fact that they're actually going to back it up somewhere. And this was eye-opening to me. This was during, this was an AMA, and this was from Ledger Support. And Absolute Gnosis says, I got a question. The question is, if you can update the firmware to instruct the secure element, what stops you from updating the firmware next week to just extract the unencrypted seed? How can you assure us that this isn't? And Ledger Support, for some reason, I don't know why they did this. They said, technically speaking, it is and always been possible to write firmware that facilitates key extraction. You have always trusted Ledger not to deploy such firmware, whether you knew it or not. I'm like, I don't know who does your marketing. I don't know if you tapped into Budweiser and said, hey, we really want to do a really good marketing tour with this. How do we kick things off? And they told you what to do, but that was the wrong thing to say. And they deleted that after that. But you know it's there. So that's the problem. So they say, look, that is a problem. So just because you don't opt in doesn't mean they can't change things. That means they can't do it in the firmware. However, I'm not going to be the one that says, okay, down with Ledger and let's destroy Ledger and they're awful and whatever else, right? Just saying they can do that. But what stops any other different device from doing that as well? One thing that you have to understand is that Ledger's code is not public source. It's closed. And with Trezor and Elipal, it is open source. So you can take a look at it and you can find out if that's what's going on, which that means that you have to be aware of it, or you have to follow people who are going to be aware for it and actually update you. That's why I would recommend that you subscribe to the channel. Shameless plug. But it can happen. And that's just what it is. So there is one more thing before we go into the alternatives, which is this. The firmware update for this recovery, Ledger recovery, is 2.2.1. And I have a Ledger Nano X, and mine says 2.1.0, and it says it's the most up-to-date. And I had to take a look. I'm like, because 2.2.1 is the one where it talks about Ledger recovery. Excuse me. And then I went to the website to verify it. Ledger Nano S is 2.1.0. Ledger Nano X, the latest version, is 2.2.1, released on 16th of May. But I took a look right in my Ledger Live, and it is not there. It is not there. So for me, I just wondered to myself, are they trying to backtrack already? Because that would be a smart decision. However, I had to take a look at the Ledger recovery terms and conditions. There's nothing there. There's nothing there that talks about how you have to opt in or opt out. It doesn't say anything about that. I looked over this thing. I'll link this in the description. You can check it out yourself. But I do kind of see where Ledger is coming from. Now, hear me out. I'm not going to say that they're like awesome and this is what you should do, but I understand where they're coming from. And I understand why they want to do this, but it's a mistake. And it's a mistake of historical proportions if something screws up. So I had to reach out to a friend of the show, Paul Baron. I said, hey, man, I want to use one of your clips. So don't give me a copyright strike. And there was this great video from Paul's network where he took off, I think this was in Twitter Spaces, where he summarized everything that was being done. Because Twitter Spaces can go for like 3-4 hours. It's like ridiculous. And there was a piece in there with the chairman and CEO of Ledger and what he said and why they want to do this. This is about 40 seconds. Just take a listen. Before I do that, let me make sure I do this correct, because last time I didn't do it right. It sounded ridiculous. I'm going to share this specific tab. Yeah. Now take a listen. This is why. And tell me why he's wrong.
I hear a lot of people saying like, oh, this is not what your customers want. Actually, this is what our future customers want, because there is hundreds of millions of people that actually need crypto and need to onboard crypto, and in a self-custody way, not through an exchange. And I'm sorry, but the piece of paper is the thing of the past, and Ledger Recover is the thing of the future. There is no compromise on security, never with Ledger. This is, our commitment. And by the way, if there is, I've seen a lot of people on Twitter saying like, oh, I'm sure this will be hacked in the next 12 months. Okay, but let's see. So many people have come to us and asked for this. And actually, it trumps every negative comment that I can see on Twitter in terms of the sheer number of people that need this functionality to actually onboard crypto.
Okay, so I get where he's coming from, quite honestly. I can see what he wants to do. I see that why they want to do that. And there was someone in the comments that said, Rob, I'm still confused on what's going on. Here's what's going on. Let's say, for example, you have your life savings in this. All your money's here, everything. And then that private key is supposed to be encrypted and stuck in here. You can't get it out. But let's say you sign up for that recovery, not just you, but all your friends, all your millions of friends that sign up for it. And then for some reason, it's hackable out of those 3 different places. And they're able to get your private key. Guess what they can do? They can drain your funds off of this. Now let's extrapolate that. It's not just you. Let's say it's the entire crypto community. What will happen there is that crypto becomes the biggest joke ever. It will, if that happens. Because, excuse me, if people say, well, not your keys, not your crypto, and you're putting it into a cold storage device, and then it really doesn't become that way, then it just gets taken. So does that make sense? If that happens, everything's a problem. However, when we talk about these things and to opt in, there's a couple of things I can think of. First of all, I understand where they're going from. I'm a business owner, small business owner, multiple. You always want to find different revenue streams of income, right? That's a pretty good revenue stream. Extrapolate $10 per month from all your users, especially the newbies, and they rely on you, right? They rely on you to store their seed phrases. Some people need that. You know why? Because we're weak. We're weak people. We have been conditioned to allow banks to custody our funds. We are all the different custody that we have as far as assets. Also, how many times we lost a password? And of course, we are weak enough that we have to keep asking for these passwords again and again and again, and not really custodying our passwords, just the most basic things. And we become weak. And then for you here, then of course, new people hear all these stories about, well, I lost this. I lost my mnemonic phrase. You talk about all the different millions of people that lost their mnemonic phrase or their hard drive, and all that Bitcoin is lost. Well, I can't do that. I'm just, single mom with 2 kids or whatever. And people think they can't do it. And they rely on these big companies because they have to rely on them, even though they have all the power that they absolutely need to do the things that they should be doing in the first place. And that's that part. So not to get off a soapbox, but this is the worst case scenario, right? In those terms and conditions, I couldn't see it. But again, to opt out, you would have to opt in. And they're not going to create this and back it up unless you are going to pay $10 per month. And there's 2 tiers. I think it would be very easy for them just to say, here's a ledger for self-custody and here's for the noobs. And we'll do it this way. So let me know what you think about that in the comments section. I personally am doing this. Excuse me. Did you know that your mnemonic phrase from your ledger or your Trezor can be moved back and forth? You could actually take your 24-word mnemonic phrase and stick it in your ledger if it's from Trezor, or 24 words back into your Trezor from your ledger. Doesn't matter. It can back it all up. Trezor, there's a link in the description. And it's going to cost you about, how much is this actually? Oh, $186. And then these are all the coins that it supports. Do you need all these coins? I don't know. I'm not you. Can't give you financial advice, but I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum, just so you know, it can do a lot, except some big stuff, Solana, Polkadot, so on and so forth. Also, what's great about that is that they have open source code, which again, you can take a look at. Doesn't support Cosmos. So that doesn't support Filecoin, which might be a security, Aptos, Hedera, so on and so forth. That's one option. Excuse me. Then you got EliPal, which is also open source. EliPal Titan Codebase is open source on GitHub, so you can definitely take a look. What I like about this one, AirGap Cold Wallet, it's not super expensive, around 100, and a small one. And it does support a ton. Look at this. A lot. So it's a lot, actually. One thing you might notice is that ERC20, when people talk about Ethereum is doomed, well, everything's built on Ethereum, so good luck. ERC20 tokens, that's pretty much everything. And that's it. So me personally, what am I going to do? It's very simple. Just like I talked to you guys about diversification, I'm probably going to be ordering a Trezor and a what is this called? EliPal. And split things up. If one thing fails, I got a backup. And I'm not going to keep everything in one basket. I've got like 3 or 4 of these, but why don't I have a couple more of those? And then just kind of spread them around. I think that's the safest option. Is it needed? I don't know for sure. But I mean, look, I think it's better safe than sorry. And an ounce of prevention is worth the pound of cure. So that's what we have. So that's it for today. So look, like today's video, give it a thumbs up. I'm going to try to get through a little Q&A without coughing my lungs out, and we'll go from there. So if you got questions, so much the better. Like and subscribe. See you guys in the next one.